broken system, chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, oh, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
Well, good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the Bullpen on this Sunday, May 4th, which we've already gotten great memes from, and that's where we're going to start the show this morning. But we'll bring that up. And in the meantime, how are you, little Chad?
I'm doing pretty good. We got May the 4th going on. I know I'm probably doing a little better than you after last night, where you were dropping
Yeah, I'm still furious.
profuse amounts of F-bombs about the Avs Stars game. But yeah, so we're starting May the 4th, and the White House account, not disappointing, continuing to prove they are 100% tapped into the meme market of the world. Immediately dropped this morning. This is the photo that goes along with it, with Donald Trump as a buffed out Jedi, obviously dual wielding only, even though he only has the one in his hand. You can see the other limb.
The other is
But
on his hip.
in addition to the picture, this is what's even better. The actual text of their post says, "Happy May the 4th to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting so hard to bring Sith lords, murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, and well-known MS-13 gang members back into your galaxy. You're not the rebellion, you're the empire. May the 4th be with you."
They've got to have somebody on staff who is just doing memes
and just
for the
to
White House.
point out, this is the official White House account posting this. That means, by the way, this goes into the official record of the federal government. Any communication issued by the White House becomes all those presidential records they went after Trump for keeping at Mar-a-Lago that were his.
Yeah.
This will officially forever be, as long as the United States exists, a presidential record that is memorialized and passed down. So,
as it should be.
As it should be. And I want someone who's got more meme skills than me to animate buffed out Jedi Trump going through and striking down like decrepit Sith Biden. and various others you can do. It's beautiful. They're so good at this.
They are
Trump
doing well.
2.0 is light years ahead of Trump 1.0. It's just great. The second term has definitely been still, I mean, as much as people have issues with things. Oh, Josh, I pointed that out to Brahma pre-show where he said the red lightsaber is an error. I was like, no, I think they're doing it to troll. Whoever did this is knee deep in Star Wars and memes culture. They knew what the red lightsaber means. They're doing it to troll people on purpose. It's
Seems likely.
yeah. So, but it's just a good way to start the day. It shows you that the White House is firing on all cylinders, not missing a beat.
Yep. Well, and they had the other meme earlier this week. It made a few Catholics mad, but mostly made leftists mad. You know, the leftists that claim to be Catholic and probably have no religiousness to them, of him as the Pope, which was also pretty funny.
Exposing people who have no sense of humor is one of the best ways to disarm them in the eyes of the general public.
Yeah.
Shockingly, this is crazy for people on the left wing to understand. Most people like to laugh at things, even things that are on their side, right? I laugh at stuff that makes
Yeah.
fun of conservatives and Trump all the time if it's funny. Just say something as long as it's funny. Now,
Yeah.
the Donald Trump posting him in the Pope outfit, that's funny. It's 100% funny. And as Lindsay points out, the same people who are supposedly devout Catholics who are A-OK with late-term abortion are suddenly offended that Trump posted a meme of him as the Pope because they're like, he's not Catholic, he's not devout, he's not. It was like, really? You're okay with, as Governor Northam of Virginia said, when the baby's born, we'll put it to the side and decide later. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
But the left is had a meltdown about this whole thing, and it's like, half of you can't even receive communion if you went to the church.
I'm
Looking
look,
at you, Nancy Pelosi.
yeah. I'm not going to say that Pope Trump would be more devout and orthodox than Pope Francis was, but there's a non-zero chance he would. Pope Francis wasn't. I mean, it's a well-known thing that there's a big schism ideologically within the Catholic Church about what Pope Francis was doing as Pope versus traditional Catholic values. And when I say traditional Catholic values, I should say orthodoxy, because when we talk about traditional Catholic values, we're talking about just the things you're supposed to do to get forgiveness and be allowed into heaven per the Catholic Church doctrine
Right.
are X, Y, and Z. And Francis was going against that. Although he
Quite
would
often.
occasionally like mess with them, because the one thing he would never actually do is say it was okay to be gay or trans or something. Like, he would
Right.
actually, like, he might say a lot of stuff about government giving rights and doing this, but when they would just ask him directly, he'd be like, no, you can't. That's
I
not
do like
allowed.
that he had such a problem with wall building while living in the Vatican,
Known for its walls.
known
That's
for
true.
just being a walled city. So, but yeah, the meme the meme stuff has been fantastic coming out of the Trump White House. I mean, even up to, I think we had on Fox News, Big Balls was getting interviewed about what they're doing with Doge this week. So literally the crawler at the bottom said, Big Balls exposes overspending in government. And even just making them use the name is just fantastic. It's great. So we got quite a few things that we're going to hit on this morning. We've got walls out at the NSA. We've got, got a number of other things. We've got Trump's
Budget
first 100
reconciliation
days. We've got
updates.
reconciliation. We've got tariffs. We've got
Canadian, Australian elections, like we care about those people, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
We have
Canadians and Australians, and then we've got Michelle Obama and her podcast, which is, I think that'll probably be a segment on every Sunday morning that we do this, or Sunday evening if we move it, because it's just gold listening to Michelle Obama whine about her life as a multimillionaire. So, shall we start with Walls?
Yeah, so Walls is the let me get I think I can
Walls was the NSA director. He's also the guy who, um, you know,
he was the
almost
one
got in
who
trouble
added.
during the thing with the person being added to the text group. Um, from what the administration has been saying and members of the administration is saying, he was in hot water before that happened. And he didn't get removed at that time because they didn't want to make it
Give
look
him a
like
scalp.
they were
So
giving it in.
yeah, so they're doing a nice move here, and I've shared the story because let me in big in that so that's a little better to see. There we go. All right, so they're doing the DC two step. This is what it's called. How do you fire someone without actually firing them? And that's
Give him Nikki Haley's old job.
you move them to another post. So
Yeah.
in this case, we already Elise Stefanik was the one who was initially nominated to be UN ambassador.
Yep.
Now, bear in mind, this is technically a promotion for Mike Waltz, because NSA, National Security Advisor, is it's a counselor position that the president appoints, but is not confirmed. It's a non-confirmed position. It's like being chief of staff. The president just gets to select who they want.
Right.
The UN ambassador position is technically, according to the hierarchy of the executive branch, a cabinet level position that requires Senate approval. So in the weird way, where technically, if you're looking at it, he is actually getting a promotion that is a demotion, because honestly, UN ambassador is a bullshit job. And they made it an official cabinet secretary level position to try to make it like it was something that mattered, but it doesn't. The only person who really made it matter was Susan Rice, because it was a cabinet level position with a security clearance. She was the one who started unmasking names and sending people referrals to the FBI in the initial Trump transition in 2016. For those who forget, that's how they got Mike Flynn, by unmasking the names on the phone calls and things. She was the one behind that as UN ambassador. So anyway, point is, even though the president's team will spin this as Mike was doing a fine job, and since we lost Elise Stefanik, we needed somebody at UN, and he's a great candidate, so we're putting him there, and it's a cabinet job. He's getting promoted. He is
Yeah.
getting fired. He's
He's getting
removed.
fired. And
And
meanwhile,
in
who do you
addition to
think is going to
him,
replace Gorka or Grinnell or?
well, real quick, in addition to him,
Sure.
Alex Wong is also out, who was another NSA staffer of repute. He was a neocon. He was a Pence guy, a Cheney guy. He was on the National Security, Council. So he's getting fired too. He's just getting fired. So he has no face saving thing to do.
Right.
Now that they have floated a trial balloon for Stephen Miller, and
Okay.
that got people apoplectic, by the way. Like, the idea that Stephen Miller would be given, because the National Security Advisor is a strong position. Like, it's not appointed, but the National Security Advisor has a lot of pull. If you wanted to take down the intelligence community, the two positions you need hardcore people on would be National Security Advisor and Director of National Intelligence, where we got Tulsi.
Yeah.
So putting Stephen Miller in there would be a person where you could start, because to really tear down the silo effect in DC, where they build walls between intelligence agencies to try to keep them from tainting each other. Allegedly, this was a Clinton administration thing. So they can't share information. This is how crazy the government is. The Clinton administration took something in the 90s where they started making intelligence agencies having to silo information, meaning they had to independently get their own intelligence. So CIA is getting intelligence completely separate from FBI intelligence, which is getting something completely separate from military intelligence. They
Right.
made them build walls. So then 9/11 happens because FBI was getting tips about these guys taking flight lessons and not needing to learn how to land, and no one was. And CIA was getting chatter from in foreign entities saying that there was going to be something big coming, and no one was putting two and two
But they're
together.
not. Yeah, they're not cross talking at all.
No, so they created the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, and made a new cabinet position, a goddamn new cabinet position, to be the person who now takes all these streams of data and collates them
Consolidates it.
and
Yeah,
consolidates and gets new, which was something we didn't need in the 90s because we had them talking to each other. So this is how DC
yeah.
works. Like, if you want to know the creeping bureaucratic state,
We
the
broke it. Now let's make a new office.
Clinton administration makes a problem. And so actually out of 9/11 we got two new offices, because 9/11 is what also led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the creation of the ODNI, Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Hmm.
And good for them. They've got thousands of employees now for new bureaucracies because of problems the Clinton administration created that we didn't have a problem with prior to the 90s.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. And who was, yeah, it's crazy. I don't think Stephen Miller is going to end up getting the job because the um the reaction has just been so visceral. Plus, he gets to be, like, every day he gets to, just when he feels like it, go out and do a press availability where he just spanks the press for being ridiculous. And I think as
Right.
national security advisor, he's technically supposed to take a back seat and do more, like, background work. And I do enjoy when Stephen Miller goes out there and talks about the Maryland man hoaxes and things like that. The Maryland dad.
Yeah.
Here's
He's right up there with JD at being able to shut down the media narratives. So
I don't think Gorka's coming back though. He's too neocon, and he's too. I mean, if I had to
I think it'll
guess,
probably be Grinnell.
I would say Grinnell is the most inside track, or Witkoff. Don't underestimate Witkoff. Trump has given him as an advisor a strong portfolio to negotiate a lot of deals right now. Witkoff is the envoy working on the Ukraine Russia peace deal.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you had, who the acting NSA is right now, right?
They gave it. They
Who,
gave a whole
like,
bunch
who?
of people more
Yeah, but just
roles.
right,
So JD
just
got a new job.
no, just real quick. If you had to guess someone in the administration who got another new job, who would it be? I mean, he's the guy who's
um,
got more jobs right now than anybody. I'll tell you that. You
yeah, it's
should know.
Marco Rubio.
It is Marco
I was
Rubio.
it was just stuck in my head. I was like, I know who it is because yeah, it's already been reported. And JD Vance picked up a couple more things
Yeah.
to be doing as well. But yeah, Marco Rubio is acting NSA along
Yep.
with his current jobs, which he's been fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh, we got a super chat coming in.
Yep. Jeremiah Hembry for $5. How many more countries does
I'm thinking that
Trump
meant
need to talk about blinking a deal? I think that may have come in on text to speech, but
I'm guessing that might have been related to Ukraine,
how many
and
countries
Russia, or trade. That's
how many countries are going to blink and make a new deal with Trump on trade would be my guess
yes.
about the
So
tariffs. That's the next 100 days is going to be all about that.
yeah, and we've got
So the first 100 days has been the stick, and the next 100 days is going to be the carrots. They're going to be making all these countries make deals, and we've got some that are already coming. So
Yeah. By the way, just to recap Marco Rubio's current jobs, he is
yeah,
the Secretary of State. He is the head of USAID. He is the acting head of the NSA. He is the acting head of the U.S. Peace Initiative. He is the acting head of the of Jesus Christ. He's got like 5 other things that he's doing, and he's doing a great job on all of them, which is great.
and he's
Marco
also been
Rubio.
fantastic with the media.
Marco Rubio continues to be my most pleasant surprise, because coming from the Gang of Eight, which is he was the chairman or ranking member of the Intelligence Committee for the Senate. Usually, you don't get to be that person, unless you're wholly owned and compromised as by the IC. And he's actually doing stuff that completely is against the intelligence people. So
Yeah,
I'm really happy. It's gonna, you know what, at this rate, if things keep going as well as they seem to be, Vance Rubio in 28 either needs to be like, they should just team up from the go with maybe Vance as president, Rubio as VP,
possibly.
because I think that would be the strongest ticket. Because they would have the MAGA bona fides locked up so hard that no one could even come close. Or they would get into a grudge match against each other, which wouldn't help anybody.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah. Well, I think we know that at this point JD's going to be Trump's heir apparent, but yeah, there is still room on who's going to be under him as the VP. And
that's
that's
why I
assuming
think,
the rest of the 4 years goes the way we think it's going to
yeah.
go.
And that's why I think it would be a great idea for them, like, because Rubio is also a young man too. He is not by any means
Little
like,
Marco.
he's not in a place where he's only got one window of opportunity. I think
Right.
if he commits and works with JD as a VP for a possible strong 8 years, then moves into his, like, I think that would be the best situation to, because what I really don't want is a MAGA infight to allow some rhino to kind of snake through.
Yeah.
Because if you split MAGA, that's how
If you
you
split
get a,
MAGA,
like, a
then
gem.
you get a establishment Republican going back in the plurality of the vote, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
which
All right.
nobody wants or needs.
So I guess since we covered do we want to move to the tariff update, since that kind of came in
Yeah, because I think
organically?
the super chat was, I
Yep.
think that's what it was referring to. So
All right, so we got a couple really big updates, which it looks like India has already knocked out its deal,
yes,
meaning they are waiting on it to be officially ratified through Modi and, like, the Indian parliament, on their side, where they sign off on the terms of it so that Trump can sign it on our side. And that makes sense, because if you are trying to immediately move manufacturing away from China, the country most positioned, as we talked about last week, most positioned to be able to just take up that slack immediately before we can reshore manufacturing in the US, is India. And I
yep,
think Trump is comfortable allowing India to pick up some of that slack, for at least for, and honestly, there will be a market, like, as much as we want to reshore, if we move it out of China and make it a kind of under a bilateral fair trade agreement, it could be good for everybody again, and it'll help
yeah,
India immediately.
because we want to bring back good manufacturing, and the things that we need from, say, India and China is just the junk that Americans are so used to being able to buy at cheap cost.
And pharmaceuticals, which
Yes,
India is actually more well positioned than any country to be able to uptick quickly pharmaceutical production, which we need to make sure we don't, like, if you're worried about what the media will do to crucify Trump under, when the tariff deal, like with the tariff situation, if there's a medical shortage of any, and they're trying, I bet they are trying to manufacture one as much as they can, if there's a pharmaceutical shortage of any product, be prepared for wall-to-wall news cycles about how Trump is killing X, Y, and Z people by not giving them something that they're supposed to be able to have access to.
right. And we don't really want China having the major production of pharmaceuticals, because you really don't want the country trying to correct the issues that pandemics are coming out of at the same time. So
Oh, look,
it's not a good mix.
we need to be honest. Like, we shouldn't be trusting any pharmaceutical product coming out of China.
True.
They are moving to poison us left and right. Why do we trust them? Have you ever seen? There's a really fun YouTube channel where the guy basically takes a lead detecting light and goes into stores, and if you, like, tap products like ceramics or anything like that, it'll create, like, with the light you can see if there's lead in
Oh
the
yeah.
product, and 99% everything coming from China has lead, like, all over it. and we're
Lovely.
letting it through. So, um, yeah. So I
Lead
think,
poisoning is a fun thing.
yeah, and it would explain some of the issues we may be having. But so we've, in addition to that update, which by the way, once India falls, I would accept Japan to come quickly right after that. And once we start getting these bilateral trade agreements where we're going to start seeing these W's come up, it's a cascading thing where it's going to snowball because no country is going to want to get left behind because as one becomes available, like as India becomes available, do you want to be the low, like if you're Vietnam, you're stuck. Vietnam's like they're owned by China. But if you're
Yeah.
some of these other ones, as soon as India makes that stuff and they would be hoovering up production. Where did remember last week? Where did Apple want to move all out? iPhone production out of China to India, and
India.
China is blocking them from moving their equipment to Indian factories. Apple
Yeah.
owned equipment, showing once again why you don't do business with Chicoms. So
Real quick, we've got the great Vex Electronica in the chat. Thank you very much for the raid this morning, Vex, and last week. Good to see you. Got to
yeah,
meet Vex in Vegas.
nice. The meetups are always great. Eventually,
Yep.
one time when I'm, when it's in the East Coast, I might go to one.
When you're gainfully employed again.
And gainfully employed when I don't have Brahma being like, "You just lost your job. Fly to Vegas. Your wife
Come
will
to
be
Vegas.
happy. Your wife will be fine with it.
Yeah.
You can stay. You can hang out in
I
my room. All you got
I
to do is
don't
pay
see
for
the
the
issue.
plane ticket." Yeah,
Just get there.
yeah. So the other thing that came off is China quietly. You know how China did their reciprocal tariffs on goods coming from America. They
And then they've pulled
quietly,
back about
yeah,
40 billion now,
they
saying,
quietly
"Uh-oh."
removed most of the stuff, most of those tariffs, because we don't send a lot to China.
Right, but what we
Um,
do, they need, and
yes, they
they have
absolutely
already
need.
felt the pain and said, "Yeah, 40 billion of these things, we're gonna remove the tariffs on because we're bleeding out." So yeah, it's working. I mean, as much as the media tries to make it sound like this has all just been a complete screw up, everything's working exactly as intended at the moment. We've
Yep.
got multiple countries coming to the table. We'll have multiple deals announced in the next, probably 30 days. And then we've got the reconciliation bill. What did we push the tax bill out to? The 4th, July 4th?
Yeah, but just finishing on the tariff stuff.
Yeah.
Um, what's really good is the job numbers for April came in,
Yep.
and they were much higher than expected, which is giving Trump the runway because you better believe they were waiting. They were waiting for that job number so that if it came in light, they were going to say it was all Trump's tariffs, that it was destroying America, and that Trump is killing everything. And be prepared. Whatever month where this stuff actually comes in light, they're going to try to crucify him with it.
Yeah.
They came in
And
above expectations.
what it's showing is that, yeah, you can lose a whole bunch of public sector jobs and the private sector will continue to hire. So,
Fascinatingly enough, you know where most of the job losses occurred? Foreign-born workers. God knows why would we have such a big drop? 1 million Americans picked up jobs over the years since Trump's taken office, and 440,000 foreign-born workers have lost jobs. It's almost like we did have Americans who would do those jobs.
yeah,
And if you remove the people who are taking them, there's American citizens who will do them. You just have to start paying them proper and pay taxes on them. You're not going
exactly.
to just be able to get over it. And then my favorite thing, and let's see, I'm going to share it real quick, is Temu is being
Yeah.
hit by these by the so this is a little pop-up. No import charges from locally sourced warehouses. So what Temu did is they shipped a ton of their shit in to warehouses so that it would beat the tariffs, and they have stopped direct shipping to the United States. Like because that de minimis loophole I've talked about is closed now. So you can't get your cheap Temu shit without now paying tariff charges and penalties and et cetera, et cetera. So they have,
Did you see? Did you see one of the Krasenstein brothers this morning going? I went online to shop for a couple of tank tops, and it's $435 to have them shipped in here. Thanks, Trump. It's like, A, you don't need to be in a tank top, Krasenstein, and B, why are you shopping on like Temu for your clothes and
yeah,
not just going and buying them from some American
you know,
company here?
go to Costco. They always have shirts
Yeah,
for like $12.
90% of my wardrobe is from Costco because it's so cheap. And I mean, they change out seasonally every couple months. It's a whole new thing in Costco, what they have on the shelves. So, but yeah, $435 for two tank tops if you're getting them from out of country.
I love Gojira, and there was much rejoicing at Gojira's household. No more of mom's Temu BS sprees. Yeah, yeah. So this is how it works because Temu, those Amazon resellers, I I do enjoy that the when they keep trying to pull these the like get sad for American business owners stories. It's Amazon resellers where they were the people in America who just bought, like imported the shit from China to
Yeah,
undercut
it's
whoever genuinely made that product.
typically an American made product. Well, let's take the other example that came out this week, MAGA hats.
Yep.
MAGA hats, all of them, the official ones, are made in America. They're made at the Cali Fame Headwear Company in the USA. And yet we had examples of people getting hats and going, Trump's just Trump's faking everything. All of these hats are made in China, and it showed a made in China. If you go onto Amazon and buy a MAGA hat, chances are you're getting a Chinese knockoff. If you go to Temu, guaranteed it's a Chinese knockoff. They take whatever product they think will sell in the US and then they make their own fake version of it with lower quality, and nothing goes to the American company that actually produces them. But it happens with everything. It happens with, just small plumbing parts. I mean, anything that can be manufactured cheaply, they will do it and undercut whatever the American company is that either came up with the idea or has been selling it here in the US. And if it's on Amazon, chances are there is a Chinese knockoff of it. And those are the things that are going to get drilled with these tariffs. And it's hilarious.
And this is where we've talked, even Trump has been honest about it. Yeah, for some consumers, for a lot of consumers, for most consumers, there may be short-term pain on some of the items you would buy, but
Mm-hmm.
this is a function of 50 years of making choices that f to the American labor market. And in the long run, sometimes you have to take some foul tasting medicine to try to get things better. And I love people like, what's, when they're like, we shouldn't be doing this. What's the alternative? We become, every day that we let it slide, our supply chain and key national security infrastructure became more dependent. Every single day, it was becoming more dependent on our number one geopolitical adversary.
Yep.
And we were funding our own enemy. This is the equivalent of during the Cold War when Reagan was trying to fight Russia to bankrupt them. We turned around and said, "No, we can't do that. We get really cheap, what God, what did Russia make anything? We get like really cheap farm equipment from Russia, and so we can't. We need the cheap farm equipment.
Well, there's a situation that's been going on for the past few years. You've got Russia and Ukraine doing their thing, all of the EU basically throwing a fit about it. And at the same time, they're all buying all of their gas from Russia because they were too stupid to listen to Trump the first go around and get energy independent. So you've had the EU, while saying how much they want to destroy Russia, is sitting there funding Russia by buying all their energy from Russia.
Well, here's actually a
Genius
good
move, guys.
here's a
I
good
mean,
example of, like, if you want to talk about the press and CNBC and the financial reporters. I'll go ahead and stop sharing the Temu thing because I think
Oh yeah.
in in when the war in Ukraine started, the Biden administration immediately moved for strong sanctions against the Russian Federation, their official moniker. Russia is the number one producer of nitrogen fertilizer in the world by
That's
far.
weird.
Like,
It brought in
th-
another copy of you.
oh no, whatever. But so they purposefully kept Russia from being able to export fertilizer, which in turn r- dramatically raised prices on every farmer in the entire Western world. If you ever watched Jeremy Clarkson's Farm, which I think is a fantastic show,
Yes, one of
there
my favorites.
his last season where he was talking about the dramatic uptick in fertilizer costs, it quadrupled.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a farmer, right, you got to pass that along. So farmers have to pay quadruple for their nitrogen because fertilizer is important for growing crops. Your farmers now have quadruple their fertilizer costs. They will then in turn at the wholesale level have to cover all of those costs when they sell their product, which in turn causes, if you want to know why food prices skyrocketed, that was one of the number one causes because fertilizer is one of the main costs for farmers. And the Biden administration and the media told us we got to suck it up. Just suck it up. That's the cost of being,
Nothing
you
that
know,
can be done.
there's nothing that can be done. We are doing the righteous cause, right? It is the righteous cause to flush money down the toilet in Ukraine and to cut our nose to spite our face by keeping Russia from exporting oil, gas, and nitrogen fertilizer, thus increasing the cost of gasoline all over the world, which is energy, which it also gets added to every single process within the supply line, and
Yep.
fertilizer costs. So, and we got told, and they covered that, and they didn't, unless you dug deep, they were not even talking about it because they were like, that's just what it is. This is just what we have to do. But you turn around and you have Trump doing something to try to like do the same, like, look, there might be a little pain, but we need to right the ship. This is for all of America. And they're like, this is ridiculous. I can't get my Temu wife beating t-shirts, as they said in in chat. And because it raised the cost. I can't get my cheap shit.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that was always the lie, right? Maybe getting, and by the way, it doesn't always come in cheaper. I've talked about this as a toy collector. Hasbro already raised prices before tariffs. A Transformer toy, a Voyager class, which used to retail for like 15 bucks, is now like 35, and that was before tariffs. They just raised the price. You can't tell me the cost of manufacturing raised or went up for them. It didn't.
Well, and the other thing is, do our patent laws actually mean anything if China can just ignore all patents and we'll go buy the stuff from China when they're breaking every one of the US patents?
Yeah,
I mean,
this is where, yeah, the tech
it
bros need
protects
to.
the yeah, it's to protect the US market as much as anything else too,
Mhm.
because yeah, that money should be going to the US company that actually created the product, not to somebody who's breaking patent law and just stealing it.
Yep. And that's where we can, I think this is a good spot now to, this is the spot to transition to the budget reconciliation, because this is the part where Trump wants the carrot, and the reconciliation slash budget slash tax package is where he's going to create that carrot to reshore manufacturing and jobs on a large scale. Because, I mean, this is where we've got to make those tax cuts permanent.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to do, and the tax code is where it, like, everybody overthinks it. The tax code is where you provide the incentives. Like, if you work in finance and accounting, the tax code tells you exactly how business is going to operate in America, and which businesses will win and lose, and which businesses have to do what. Like, when I
Which
was reading,
businesses can take
yeah,
out new loans
yeah,
to do new projects. to do more research, all those kinds of things,
Yep.
or to hire or build another factory or any of these things. It's because of how much the government's heel is on their neck or not.
Yep. So in this case, we've got a couple big things that are coming through. Number one, they are not going to be touching the core of Medicaid or Social Security. Trump was very clear about that. What they are going to do is start making the adjustments where some of the excess costs go away. I think Trump is factoring in that by deporting and locking down these false Social Security numbers that can keep people from getting benefits when they shouldn't, there is that you don't need to necessarily strip core benefits or make any of those adjustments to actually get meaningful savings. So he's being smart.
Because the oversight from Doge that actually found all of the spending that shouldn't have been happening actually cuts what you actually need already. I mean,
What he is, yeah,
that is where the cuts were.
what he is going to do, and what seems to be the consensus at this point, the major change to Medicaid is going to be it's no longer up to the states because right now individual states can do this, but there will be a work requirement for able-bodied adults. If you are an able-bodied adult, you need to be working if you want to continue to get Medicaid. So this doesn't impact children. This doesn't impact the disabled. This is specifically, and this is because the Biden administration had made it so that individual states could start waiving that requirement because it's ridiculous, and that they would still pay for umpteen people to get Medicaid without having to work if you could.
Well, and there was the other thing the states were doing that they're basically cutting federal funding for was where the federal government was matching funds for the state for Medicaid for things that were not medical expenses. Like states were actually, in the name of medicine, giving people houses, paying for their houses, paying for their rent and stuff to the tune of billions of dollars, which is not a medical expense. And the federal government was kicking in funds to go to those programs that the states were running. And the administration has basically said, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. Medicaid is going to be a medical situation, not, well, we just need to take care of people better. And that way, that'll help them with their medical situations. It's by giving them houses and crap. The
Mhm.
overspending has just been absolutely insane. And the exposure of it has been eye opening to a lot of people in the country, I think.
Yeah, and that's why. So the work requirement, the only thing that's going to probably change with Medicaid is having a national level work requirement, so no state can opt out of it,
Right.
which will cause some savings. The it is basically a given at this point that the SALT deduction will be adjusted up. It's still a matter of getting tweaked about at how high it will go up. So that's SALT, meaning state and local taxes. This is
Hmm.
really big for us. When you have a tight majority, a lot of Republicans come from the New York and California. And by a lot, I mean at least a dozen or so. And they all need that. Needed. And it doesn't have to, they're not going to, it's a tough pill to swallow because getting that down to 10,000 in Trump's initial tax bill last time was a major victory to make people get effed by the blue states they live in, you know, for making bad choices fiscally. But at the same time, the politics is the art of the real, not the art of what, you don't. Again, Thomas Massey doesn't get to, he's never going to put up a win ever legislatively, ever. And it's because he never compromises on anything. And that
Right.
sounds great, but you never get any kind of victory. So
Black and
Salt will
white, no
probably,
gray.
I'm going to end up thinking that Salt's deduction is going to go from 10, it'll probably move up to like 30. And and you think that sounds like a lot, but bear in mind in New York, where a working class person, their property taxes on a house might be $20,000. you know,
Right.
so and that's also probably going to help in Florida too. because Florida's property taxes are a little out of control. So I think SALT adjustment is going to go in there. What is going to be interesting is that Trump has signaled he is a-okay with raising the marginal rate on highest earners
Right.
up a
Creating a
couple.
tax bracket on millionaire,
Well,
a
yeah,
new tax bracket.
yeah. So, and I'm fine with that too. I think if that's what gets you the deal, do it. That's fine. I think Trump has also said, and they've all signaled that carried interest is getting eliminated, which is great. Ideally, what it looks like Trump is trying to do is eliminate taxes completely for under $150,000.
He's actually signaled that he's looking closer to the $200,000
I
line
think
in the
that's
past
joint.
week or two.
I think that was
Joint, yeah.
joint though. I think it's 150,000 individual, 200 joint,
Okay.
which by the way covers 90% of taxpayers.
Along with other things like no taxes on tips, the things that he brought up during the campaign.
Yep. Social Security go away, no taxes on tips. The
Yep.
Trump is like one of the most committed to keeping his promises on those things as anybody I've ever met. So, or well, not that I've met him personally. My wife has, but not me. The the so I think if you want to take to the bank, the things that'll be in there is Social Security income will be not taxed anymore. Tips, honestly, tips, as a taxable thing, are such a small, you know. Obviously, if anybody's ever known a waiter or a server, if they call that, or a bartender, back when it was all cash, they lied on it anyway. Nobody ever reported what
Yeah.
their actual tip income was.
Especially back when cash was how you tipped instead of
Yeah.
on credit cards. Credit cards, you couldn't get around it, but cash, nobody declared their cash.
Yeah, for a few years during that like middle point transition, I would always leave the tip in cash and just pay on credit card.
Right.
But I don't do that anymore. I've just gone pretty much cashless. It's just I don't carry it around much. So I think it's tracking like I think we're gonna get the deal. I think what'll happen is we're gonna end up losing Massey and maybe like another dude, another couple. We'll get a couple like blue dog Democrats who will vote for it because it'll have that new income bracket on high earners.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll offset and we end up getting it passed through the House. I think the main deal is the Senate is dictating the terms, and the Senate will pass it. We might lose one or two on the Senate side, but I think we end up passing it because reconciliation is straight majority. So I think
Yeah.
it passes. I think in the end, all the Republicans will vote for it in the Senate. So I think we lose a couple in the House and we gain maybe possibly up to 5 or 6 Democrats in the House. So you're going to end up with like a 222, 223, 4 in the House, and you're going to end up with the 53. And you might even pick up a Democrat or two in the Senate because it does increase the marginal tax rate and does a couple of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it probably ends up around 55, anywhere from 53 to 55 in the Senate goes to Trump and gets done probably by end of July, beginning of August. So they can go on recess because the House and Senate always go on recess for all of August, and none of them are going to want to work in the summer, so that they'll be done by then.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and I think it's been said that the deadline that they're looking at is by July 4th. So
yeah, if
that
ideally
kind
if
of
they
fits
get,
in that timeline.
oh yeah, if they can get it done by July 4th and actually just they will book it for the whole summer. They'll just you
Yeah,
will not
they'll
see shit like this is how our Congress works, people. They work out of 365 days, they might have 40 working days.
yeah, and quite honestly, as we've been looking at Trump's first 100 days, the only thing that is disappointing is just how little Congress has done to actually get anything set in stone yet. I mean, of course, when you've got the Senate where it's at, it wasn't going to happen real quick, but it would be nice to see even a few small wins there. I'm going to try to, yeah,
I
let's
did add
see.
I added this real quick for our transition because I
So it is
thought
your
this.
screen share that
Yeah,
it won't go away.
there it goes. Now it's gone.
There.
All right, so this was the Kentucky Derby was yesterday,
Yep.
and sovereignty outduels journalism to win the Kentucky Derby. If that isn't like a like
Yeah,
a Rorschach test for what you think of, this is, it's perfect.
it
I
is.
would. The only thing
Also,
better is if sovereignty wins the Triple Crown.
did you yeah, that would be hilarious and great, but I actually heard a stat about all the horses yesterday running in the Kentucky Derby. Do you know every one of them traces its lineage back to Secretariat? I'm
Of
not sure if
course.
that one was true or if that this was the first time in the Kentucky Derby that every single horse's lineage was traced back to Secretariat.
I I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first time it happened because I know. I mean,
Typically, you get some Arabian horses and some other stuff in there
yeah,
too. So
when one of those horses wins, like that horse is going to be. I mean, in Secretariat, when you win a Triple Crown, the next 15 years of that horse's life is just stunning.
breeding, yeah,
They will, and they
it's a
will
horrible life.
they they will pay the fees. There's and what's really and there's a different fee for whether you want it done traditional or incepted.
Right.
So, as some people were old fashioned and would pay to have like to bring their horse to Secretariat and get it done.
Let them mount up.
So it's crazy. But I thought it was just there's sometimes the universe just winks at you, and like
Yeah,
sovereignty beating journalism would have been great. It was just perfect.
it was hilarious. There was I mean, I can't remember the name of the horse, but the second portion of the name was Bull, so I was kind of pulling for that one. But I was not able to watch the race yesterday because I took the whole family to the Denver Zoo, so I missed the whole
Oh,
race and didn't get any bets put on it.
did you bring the Brahma grandbaby as well?
Yep, I carried her on my shoulders the whole day, and I don't think she spotted a single animal until we got into like the reptile and fish, building. Then I could put her in front of the glass and let her stand, and she could see the fish. But I mean, she's only what 8 months old, so she wasn't really spotting all the animals hiding. Because during the heat of the day, none of those animals were doing anything. They were all just plopped down in the whatever shade they could find. I don't remember zoos being like that back when we were little. I'm sure the animals like it more now that they've got, kind of more nice pens and stuff where it's more conservationist type, you know.
Brahma was like, I
But
want someone with a
I missed
stick
when they were in
poking
a
the
freaking
animal
cage.
and making them like dance for me. Dance, animals, dance. No, it depends on the zoo you go to. Like the National Zoo in DC is so small
Yeah.
that they like even the curated enclosures just aren't big enough for the animals to have a lot of places to go. So you see tons of animals.
Yeah.
Except for the goddamn pandas. Those things are always just sleeping somewhere off, not in their enclosure.
When they're not
By the
trying to
way,
off themselves,
yeah, by the way, pandas are not some animal where the humans are responsible for the decline of the species. They
they're
are
just dumb as a rock.
they are borderline multi-chromosomal animals that you know what kills the most pandas is the mother panda rolling over on it and just killing their baby. Like it's yes, the
Yep.
Gojira is right. They're the most useless animal. I don't know what their role in the ecosystem is. Yeah, and we've
To
made
keep the
them.
bamboo under control.
I swear to God, it's the Chinese Communist number one propaganda tool is being able to sell pandas to zoos across the country. It's
Across
it
all
doesn't
countries.
across all countries, mainly the
Meanwhile,
U.S.
they have
though.
lions that are just dogs that
Yeah,
they've colored the hair on.
yep. Oh, it's crazy. San Diego Zoo, by the way, if you ever go, buy the ticket to be able to use their bus system. That thing is guy gigantic, goddamn huge. And when I went there, it was 2008 with my wife. We were going to San Diego Comic Con, and I wasn't able to get tickets for every single day. So one of the days I was like, oh, we'll go to the zoo.
Yeah.
God damn it, we did more walking at that zoo than I did for the entire convention.
Oh,
I was like, wait, we don't need the bus. It's just a zoo, because I was used to DC where it was just like nothing. I was like, oh, this thing is ridiculous.
well, the one here in Colorado Springs is one of the highest rated zoos in the country, but we don't like going to it, A, because they raised their prices a whole lot this year, and B, it's on the side of Cheyenne Mountain. So you're literally walking up the mountain in order to see each exhibit. So it
Oh my
is
god,
just
they built.
exhausting,
Wait a
especially
second, they
yes,
built a zoo
on top
the
of
side,
NORAD is
on top
a
of
zoo.
Stargate Command. Isn't Stargate
Yes,
Command also in Cheyenne?
I think everything regarding any missile tracking or space tracking is built into
Space
Cheyenne Mountain.
Force. Space
Yep.
Force. All right.
So that's why we went to Denver, because we're sick. We did not want to push the stroller and everything up the side of a mountain, because it literally is just a ridiculous grade all the way up.
All right. So this is just a funny meme I came across. There was like the White House is going to sign an order on English literary tests for all truck drivers, and the quote is like, "And who was the author of Jane Eyre? Emily Bronte. Turn the engine off and step out of the truck for me, sir." Yeah, it was not Emily Bronte.
I'm gonna need you to step out now.
I'm gonna need you to step out. Yeah, that, because this is a fun transition for our international elections story,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of international trade that mainly through truck goes between the United States and Canada, and they had their election this week. And then Australia had their election. I didn't even know Australia
Had their
had an
election
election.
yesterday.
Yeah, had their election yesterday, and basically it was the same. It's amazing how it's almost the same scenario. It's the Liberal Party was tracking really poorly. Trump starts doing his tariff stuff, and apparently it
And it
nukes the
becomes a
conservative,
referendum on Trump, and the conservatives in each country aren't able to stand on their own,
which
apparently.
which is
Yeah.
hilarious. So
So it's
they
all
both,
Trump's fault that Australia and Canada have gone more liberal. And
yeah,
quite frankly, it's his job to run our country, not
yeah,
to help out them.
which is funny because both countries, Australia to a lesser extent, but even Australia too, are basically shell companies for China to import things to other places. So they're good for them. I know that we have some Australian friends in our audience, and they're great people, but Australia is a closed market to most US trade. The
Hmm.
idea that Trump put a tariff on them and it was just like such bullshit is ridiculous, because good, like I've watched, I watch a lot of different markets within the US, and for number one, for the cattle, people who raise cattle in the US have complained for decades that Australia is persona non grata to any US cattle
Livestock.
and livestock, and they won't let you import it, even though Australia is one of the larger meat consuming countries in the planet. So they're not allowed to sell into there, and they make a lot of excuses, and that's fine, whatever. But the idea that they say, well, even our antibiotic free grass fed hippy dippy cattle are not allowed to be sold. Like, this isn't a scenario where, like, well, we don't want genetically modified and this and that and the other.
Yeah,
No,
GMOs.
they won't even let our fully as hippied organic, farm raised, where they're like hand
Free
feeding them
range cattle.
grass, where they're massaging their calves, whatever. This is, they don't allow that stuff. And so I'm tired. Don't give me a lie that Australia, like, this is when Trump would talk about non-tariff barriers. It wasn't that Australia put a tariff on the cattle, it was that they wouldn't allow it to be sold. So that's a
Yeah, it wasn't an
non-tariff
open
barrier.
market between the two countries.
Yeah, so, but more, this is going to be more impactful in Canada, and I know Randall Orser's over there. Is Yeah, I can't. These foreign parties need to just get their names right, by the way, because like the Liberal Party in Australia
Australia
was the Conservative
is the
Party.
conservatives, and the Labor, I
Right.
believe, is the
Yeah,
is the leftist.
Yeah, and as he said, the Conservative Party in Canada used to have progressive in its name. I'm like, yeah, you guys just need to, like get some naming conventions that make sense. So that I have to like go knee deep into the article to actually see which one is what. Pierre Paulvert, and this is great, both in Canada and Australia, the conservative quote unquote candidate lost their parliamentary seat
Yep.
in the
Not
elections,
not just lost the election, lost
but
their
lost
own
their actual
personal
seat.
seat.
Yeah. But I think Canada is the one to focus on for us because obviously it's our northern neighbor and is more impactful. Um, Number one, this is exactly what Trump wanted. He didn't want a conservative party in there because Trump, and for people who aren't diving deep, his agenda is basically to crush Canada this year because the USMCA, the United States Mexico Canada Trade Agreement, is up for renegotiation or cancellation in July/August. Trump can either send notice that they are renegotiating or send notice that he is outright canceling the agreement. And for people wondering, like, I think that's why Trump rolled back on those ones and said any current product subject to USMCA isn't going to be subject to my tariff decision on Canada and Mexico for right now. Because he 100% is going to come out and say in July that I'm canceling the deal. We're done. We're going to do bilateral. That means we're going to have a deal with Mexico and we're going to have a deal with Canada. And
Separate
he's going
deals, yeah.
yeah, and he's going to probably negotiate the deal with Mexico fast, real quick, because they almost the USMCA can be basically the framework for the deal with Mexico, and they're just going to add some provisions about country of origin to make it stronger so that China can't just get around that. But I think with Canada, he's going to go hardcore because Trump has said several times can American banks can operate in Canada. They're not allowed, which is a problem. Like we Canada, for all its little, dovish talk, completely locks out a lot of American systems. You can't sell dairy products from America in Canada, even though a lot of dairy farms in Wisconsin and that, upper Midwest would love to be able to have an additional market right there
Is it that
that
you
they could
can't, or
sell.
is that the one that had like 200 to 400%
Well,
tariffs put
that's,
on it
I
from
mean, I
America?
shouldn't say can't, but like when it was like 400% tariffs,
Right.
which, once you mark
Which
something up
means
four
you
times,
can, but
but
it's
who's
not,
going to buy?
it's
Like,
priced out of the market.
yeah. So, and then the other fun thing is Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alberta immediately, because Canada's system, the provinces are it's almost a combination of the Articles of Confederation and the current United States structure, where the provinces get like an ungodly amount of individual autonomy and power, but they're still but the federal system within Canada still can like fuck them and rein them in a little bit. So like, but Alberta, where their number one thing, if you look at the map in Alberta, they're oil country. It'd be like Texas.
Energy. Yeah. It's
Alberta
the
is the
Texas of
Texas of
Canada.
Canada, and they feel that way too. So the the premier of Alberta, which is effectively their governor, immediately lowered the amount of signatures required for a referendum
Secession.
to basically 1/10 of what no 1/4 of what it used to be, which is now approximately 10% of the electorate from the last election. And they
Mm-hmm.
are, I think, at 63% already of this since the election just earlier this week, which was like on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
They've already collected 63% of the needed signatures to get it as a referendum, and it's probably higher now. So that's going to end up as a referendum for Alberta to seek independence, to basically sever their ties with Canada. And when Trump was joking about the 51st state, it could just be Alberta,
Alberta would be the one that you would want to take,
because
or
the
the portion of
pipelines.
Canada. Yeah.
So that's what's great. Like the Alberta pump, like gets the oil. We have pipelines coming out of Alberta going into the U.S. to U.S. refineries, and then we send refined oil to Canada as gasoline and thing. So Alberta is already set up infrastructure wise to be able to just slip right in as a territory slash eventual state. We
Hmm.
finally get that 51st state, and then honestly, once you get Alberta, that's a domino chain right there because I think as much as they've tapped it down, Quebec has wanted into as Bad Take Bojan says they've been you know yelling for independence for a while because they're the French speaking part. It could end up
Yes.
with the breakup of Canada. So this might be one of those things where the only group that voted majority, I think, for the Labor Party in Canada was the over 65s. No, it
Yeah,
wasn't.
I haven't looked at the
Yeah,
breakdown.
and they were also the group that were they on the exit polling. Their number one issue was somebody who will stand up to Trump instead of
Right.
somebody who will take care of Canada. So they might get their wish. They're going to get somebody who's going to stand up to Trump, and it's going to destroy their country in the process. It's the Trump
So,
curse, Trump derangement syndrome.
yeah, I mean, you would think that you would elect somebody who is best for your country, not just anti-Trump. I mean, and that's what happened in both elections. It is what it appears from the outside, and those that are there can give us more info if that isn't correct. But it seems like the whole thing flipped on. We need somebody who will just be anti-Trump in every situation possible, and that's what the voters there apparently decided they wanted.
Yeah.
And the
So it's
parliamentary system is a mess. We've been over that before, but it is such a mess.
yeah, my favorite thing when it so the newly elected, newly minted prime minister of Canada, Mark Carney, was the economic
Advisor for Trudeau.
advisor to Trudeau and was basically allegedly guiding the economic choices that so many people were so upset about it ended Trudeau's prime ministership. And ran on an election, and people were letting him. Well, like, oh, he's like, well, I wasn't prime minister. You were telling him what to do.
He was literally saying that, well, I'm not from the government. I'm from outside the government. It's like you basically were the architect of the financial downfall of Canada for the past 8 years. And that's who is now in charge. So I love some individual Canadians, but the country itself, like Eric Cage has said, lost.
Yeah, I mean, I've got hope for. I think I really hope that. So, if Alberta votes for independence, it's not binding in that it just immediately happens because there are rules. I guess it has to then go through the parliament, and the parliament would have to sign off on it
Would
and
have
things
to
like that.
approve it. Yeah.
But here's where the monkey wrench comes in. Alberta votes for independence, and Trump recognizes them.
Right.
So the number. So
Really
for
setting off the Canadians.
yeah, so for people to like, if you want a historic example, since I'm good on historical tangents, think of Israel in the late 1940s, early 50s. It was the United States officially recognizing them as an independent country that set shit off. Because once we recognized them as the biggest country in the world, the defender of the free world, etc., after especially coming off World War II, nobody could argue, like, and by doing that nobody could go to the UN because we had veto power, and we effectively created Israel by acknowledging their existence. If we hadn't done it, it just would have been a disputed territory, and that would have been an ongoing fight over who actually was independent and in control. Think of Cyprus as an issue where that's still ongoing with
Well, think of the one China,
with
those
Taiwan.
kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, where Nixon changed our policy and officially recognized
Whether we
their.
acknowledge or don't
Yeah.
can create whole foreign policy situations.
And think of Trump does this. He officially acknowledges Alberta. He officially acknowledges them as a sovereign nation, and he immediately enters into a trade negotiation for a free trade agreement with Alberta
For energy.
for energy. And then Canada's yelling, well, they're not an independent. And then what's great is Trump will be out there and be like, I'm just respecting the will of the people. The people did this. They said they want to be their own country. I am
We live
now
in a crazy
recognizing
time.
it. Yep.
I
So
mean,
it's
when you stop and think about it, we really do live in a crazy time right now. I mean, there's so much difference between the way people think on the left and the right now that I don't know that there's ever, well, probably not in our lifetime, any coming back together on most things as far as the political side of it. I think your everyday man on the street, probably everybody has a lot more in common than you think. But I mean, just the TDS alone has just been amazing to watch. How much people will go against their own interest because of one man who's really more moderate than anybody that a conservative would truly want. It's just astounding to me every time we talk about it, every time we look at what's going on in the world. And this is the guy who's also stopping wars and not getting into new wars. And that's the enemy at this point.
so Eric is bringing up a quote, would the Alberta thing kick off World War III? The answer is no, because while Canada is part of NATO, and technically any attack on a sovereign country of NATO is considered an attack on all, that article has to be invoked and it has to be voted on by all NATO member states. And right now, we are still a NATO member state, and every single NATO member state has a veto. And so we would just say no. We don't agree that what we're doing is bad and
Well,
veto it.
and Alberta would be autonomous at that point, so they wouldn't be a part of NATO.
Yeah, and we would, and so technically there are a lot of treaties about the forced acquisition of land post World War II that doesn't recognize. This is something people bring up with Ukraine and Russia, with Crimea and the Donbass, that
Hmm.
technically against current international order, Putin shouldn't be able to retain any land that he has taken through force. That's bullshit. I mean, nobody who's going to enforce it. All of those international orders depend on the United States to enforce them.
Right.
So as long as the United States doesn't get involved, none of that stuff is going to happen. And
Throughout all of history, there's been conquest, and we decided we were going to create the UN and NATO to try to rid the world of conquest as a way that countries actually operate.
yeah, Canada is as a member of NATO, we are aware of their defense spending. They do not meet their 2% of GDP obligation currently, and they haven't ever for military spending. And most of their military equipment is US provided. We sell it to them equipment. So no, they they are not going to be able to do like this is the perfect
We are
example
the
of like
enforcement wing of the UN and
yeah.
NATO, so
So this would be like the bully pantses you and gives you a swirly, and then you run off to tell the vice principal about it, and the vice principal is the bully that just pantsed you and gave you the swirly, and he's gonna say, "Nah, I don't think I did anything wrong. Go away now. You're you're
yeah.
you're not gonna get any support."
Well, or the Supreme Court making a ruling that specifically outlines what the executive can do, and the executive just saying, "Yeah, you don't have the power to do that." The Supreme Court has no enforcement wing to do anything. It all works together because
Um,
the Constitution and because we choose, we as a country choose to use that system and keep
not
that
to
system as sacred as possible. But
not to invoke some side tangents from your comics division shows, but the most famous example of that was under Alan with Andrew Jackson. The Indian tribes went all the way to the Supreme Court about being forced out of Georgia.
hmm
The Cherokee, I believe it was, and the Supreme Court sided with them. Said there were treaties signed with the federal government of the United States that said that's your land. The federal government has to abide by these treaties. And Andrew Jackson famously said they've made their ruling. Let's see them enforce it, and sent the army down there and kicked them out. and invoked what became known as the Trail of Tears, where they forcibly moved the entire Cherokee population west. For people who haven't studied their history, Cherokee was from Georgia. They're not a Western tribe. They are a Western located tribe now
Now,
because we moved them out there to those reservations after after Andrew Jackson decided I want that land. He kicked them all out. That's why it was a famous. It was a great joke in the Maverick movie when Mel Gibson was hanging out with the Indian. He was like, "You really know how to pick the places." He's like, next place I'm going to take is going to be a real shithole, so you white guys don't kick us out and take it from us. But yeah, so the Supreme Court could do nothing. That is a legal case. Went to the Supreme Court. They won it. They went through our system, and the unitary executive said that's great for the Supreme Court. They made a really great ruling. I'm just going to ignore it and just do what I want anyway.
so what?
Yeah, the only thing that should have happened, like in theory, the Congress could have impeached. That would have been an impeachable offense. Saying, if they wanted to, they could have used that as grounds that Andrew Jackson, as the executive, is completely disregarding a co-equal branch's ruling and
Right.
acting on his own beyond the scope of what he's supposed to be able to do. Did they do that? No. Did they
Nope.
stop funding for his, for the military from doing that? No. Did they stop funding the Indian Affairs Department? No. They did nothing because Congress was on his side. So they voted for it. Brahma's
So
right.
2 branches of the government overruled a third branch.
Yeah, in
Even
theory,
though the third branch was technically trying to overrule the federal.
yeah. So what the founders envisioned basically is if one branch got out of control, 2 branches could neuter them.
Right, because if Congress, as you said, if Congress really wanted that ruling to be enforced, then what you do is impeach.
I think you can see that also in the way that impeachment is set up. When the House impeaches an executive branch member, it goes to the Senate for trial, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over it.
Oversees it, yeah.
So, in theory, if the Supreme Court wasn't on board with it as a judge in a court, because they've now made the Senate a courtroom, the judge would have a lot of grounds to be able to allow evidence in or disallow evidence. They wanted to make it so, again, you needed 2 branches on board to take
Right.
somebody out. And, but here's the thing, Eric, impeachment only, like we've learned from last Congress, they impeached Mayorkas in the
Mayorkas,
House.
yeah.
And what did the Senate do with Schumer? He tabled it. He just said, thanks for
We don't
sending
care.
it. We're not going to act on it. That set a precedent now. The Senate doesn't even have to act on impeachment. And when you look at it, technically, it seems like the only one that requires a trial is when it's specific to the president. It's a weird little thing.
Yeah.
But even then, there's some loopholes where it's like the way it's worded, it says the Senate has to act on it. And if there's a trial, here's how it works.
And the question is, if they act on it by saying we're not going to act on it, is that
Is
taking
that
an
acting
action?
on it? Yeah. And that seems like
Is
apparently
inaction
true.
an action in that case? Which the precedent now is yes, inaction is making a decision or taking an action. Weird. So we're getting down to it. The last thing that we were going to cover was Michelle Obama's podcast. Did you have the clip?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Because Michelle Obama.
Michelle
was,
Obama just whining about everything nonstop. I mean, she's had 2 episodes of the podcast that have had a whole bunch of clips go out this last week. One is, her whining about, as a black woman, you're always taken advantage of. Nobody cares about your feelings, all that kind of stuff. And then the second one, which I think is this one, right, is about her time in the White House.
This is the let me tell you about why it wasn't fun.
Many people don't know. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the first lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel. Many people don't know. I mean, much is not covered.
So
You're paying for every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for
repeating.
housing and the staff.
Yeah.
So yeah, Michelle Obama is upset because it was too expensive living in the White House while she was there.
I
Well,
mean,
they're multi-millionaires. They signed a deal with Netflix and a book deal as soon as they got out of the White House. I mean, do you have to pay for your family's travel, Chad, when you go on a vacation?
unless things have magically changed in my life, yes. Which is
Oh,
why I
yeah.
couldn't go to Las Vegas, just on the willy nilly. Oh yeah, free ticket. Let me go.
Could, didn't.
Anyway, but she, as first lady, is my understanding that she was not precluded from getting speaking fees. So I'm sure she was
Correct.
making the money in that way. Just like the president could get speaking fees for
some
fundraising.
reason, she's adored by the whole world outside
I
of
mean,
the people who know better here.
Look,
While
people,
she's never been proud of this country.
Brahma, look,
She got to live in a 55,000 square foot house with 18 acres of land and, all the other perks of being the president's wife. She has 3 mansions now, but yes, she just survived being the president's wife. I mean,
Yeah,
it was so grueling. It's absolutely insane listening to her try to garner a whole bunch of emotional support because she's so broken because she had to be in the White House.
I don't buy the polls, by the way, about how popular she is,
Neither do I.
because it's easy to come up to, because in a poll where you're just given a binary choice, are you favorable or unfavorable about Michelle Obama? I mean, look, if I was stuck taking a poll, do you want to answer that one as unfavorable? There's a lot of social pressure not to answer that one the wrong way.
Depends on how anonymous it is, right?
Yeah. So the idea that that if she was really that popular, when she campaigned for people, they'd see a bounce, and they don't. And Obama doesn't see a bounce. Like, he's terrible on people talk about him going out there and he can fundraise. Yeah, he can get people
Because
who
he's
are
a
large
community
donors.
organizer.
Well, I think once we get really deep into the Act Blue books, we're gonna see how much of that was shenanigans too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Obama had the luck. In a lot of ways, like, people complain, about Trump getting elected because the people who are against Trump say he had the good luck to go against 2 historically unlikable candidates.
And both happen to be women.
And both happen to be women, but also historically unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
And Kamala's speech this week just reinforced her drunken mess of a speech.
Yeah.
People
We
leave
dodged a
off the
major
fact
bullet there.
people leave off the fact that Obama went against 2 historically terrible candidates too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, not to relitigate 2008 and 2012, but in hindsight, I mean, John McCain is a terrible
2 of the most
candidate.
rhinos that rhino.
The rhinoest of rhinos. And John McCain doing stupid shit where he suspends his campaign, and he's getting momentum. He was doing well. For people who like to, and this is I hate when people like Sarah Palin did it. Sarah Palin was what jump started his campaign. That was when his numbers
That was the
moved
only
up.
thing people were excited about.
After Sarah Palin and her going aggressively against Obama,
second time it's come up this week. Sarah.
Yep. Yeah. Is when McCain's numbers went up. And McCain was the one who torpedoed his own campaign when he suspended it. And also when he did his little lecture to his own audience member, was like, no, we don't talk that way about other people. And
Yeah.
Good for him. He took the high road right into not being president, which is, thank God for that, because as much as I dislike Obama and what he did domestically, I guarantee you McCain would have had such a hard on to go into Iran that we would have been in a third Middle Eastern country.
Yeah, immediately.
2012, we had Romney, who
Friggin' Mitt
was,
Romney.
and Obama was particularly positioned to lose. He was. I mean, people think aside from the Biden being a vegetable issue, all the economic stuff was on the side of the insurgent candidate instead of the incumbent. And Romney rhinoed his way into losing that election too. Talking about hot Mike, when Romney, just like, I mean, the only person who hasn't done the writing off half of America moment the last 4 elections is Trump, because
Yep.
Romney did his famous 47% comment. We got Hillary doing the basket of deplorables. We got, Biden talking about how to, I mean, God help him, everything out of his mouth was lies about
Racist and
the,
fascist.
yeah. And then we got Kamala doing the same thing. Yeah. So Romney, so Obama was gifted with two terrible candidates running against him as well. Republican,
Yeah.
a lot of, people discount the matchup component. Bill Clinton had one had in 92 got the benefit. He was going to lose to George W. Bush, but Perot siphoned enough people off to
Well,
get him
and
in.
people, for whatever reason, saw Bill as young and cool, especially after the saxophone playing on Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, and then in 94, or 90, not 94, in 96, he ran against Dole, and I think Dole was the one I was
Bob
most
Dole was too
disappointed.
nice.
He was a statesman. I also loved Bob Dole was one of the earliest guys to go out and endorse Trump, by the way, even in his elderly state. He was 100% pro Trump because he was a Kansas guy and liked kind of what Trump was about. I
Yeah.
love Bob Dole. I think he was the guy I'm most disappointed didn't get to be president in my lifetime, because I think he was a genuine guy who loved America. All the stuff he did, as much as you dislike big government, one of his main achievements in the 1980s was the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I think most people would agree is probably one of the more fair uses of government authority, is to actually say, hey, we've got people in wheelchairs, you should put a ramp in at the courthouse. Like you can
Yeah.
do things like that. So it's been
Requiring
like,
elevators.
now, like a lot of things, even the best intended stuff could get out of the weed and get people getting crazy stuff out of it. But when he put it in, it was because, and he understood, because, man, guy jumped on a grenade in World War II, lost the use of his arm.
Yeah.
So he understood being, anyway. So
I think my
but
problem with Bob Dole and with Romney and with McCain is the Republicans, it always felt to me, were doing the exact same thing that the Democrats do now. It was, okay, well, it's just this person's turn. It wasn't that we all wanted that as our candidate, wanted them as our candidate. It felt like the party was just like, yep, well, it's this person's turn to run.
well, you could
And
even argue that the
you
last
thought Bill Clinton
insurgent,
probably, I mean, should have been weak after the whole Monica thing, but he didn't really lose that much in the polls. And I think they just threw up somebody against him that it was like, yeah, well, it's his turn, so we're gonna throw him in there against Clinton, and we don't expect to win either way. I mean, that's how it felt against
the
Obama both
Republicans.
times. The Republicans did the same game that the Democrats did,
Oh
right
yeah,
up
I
until
mean,
Trump turned it all upside down.
I mean, Reagan was an insurgent candidate prior, and he won. George W. Bush was the establishment choice. It was
Hmm.
his turn. He had been VP. He was former CIA director, whatever.
Then you get the Bush dynasty. And
Which was
really,
one
Trump
one term.
was not supposed to win. It was supposed to be Jeb.
Yeah, and that's again, that's where I like the insurgent. I would even argue that even with JD Vance being Trump's VP, he will be the insurgent against Republican orthodoxy, because it'll take another person who's not Trump advocating these positions to fully take over the Republican.
Because MAGA is a separate
Party.
movement from the Republicans.
Yeah, MAGA needs to
also-
completely finish the overtaking.
Also, we moved topics, and I forgot to bring this one up. But Eric K for $2 said Mayorkas needs to be thrown in jail. Yeah, Mayorkas was the floodgate opening in the whole immigration process. So yes,
Yes, he
But-
was.
he should have at very least got his impeachment hearing and been thrown out of government. And the fact
You know,
that
here's a question.
Joe Biden wouldn't fire anybody says how little Joe Biden was involved when somebody is as bad as Mayorkas, but it was working as intended for them. So
Joe Biden wouldn't fire Mayorkas because he didn't remember he hired him.
probably not.
He's probably like, oh, who's that guy over there? Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Joe.
There's no way he would have known.
That's
or
what he said
remembered
at
how to
Trump's
pronounce his
inauguration.
name.
That was what he said to him at Trump's inauguration.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. My name's Joe. Yeah, so it's I mean, I haven't looked in. I guess technically the articles of impeachment were from the House term that ended, so they probably become moot. But technically, if
Who
it was
knows?
tabled, you could go to the parliamentarian and see if you could bring it up now. I mean,
Right.
they impeached Trump after his presidency ended. I mean, why not
And
follow through with the articles?
well, Charlie Kirk and a few others, every time it's brought up that, you know, like the articles of impeachment that are being introduced by Democrats right now, it's like, okay, so you guys are fine with us also bringing up articles of impeachment against Obama for bombing U.S. citizens? I mean, if you want to play the game of we're just going to impeach all the time, we can go back and impeach Obama, for that kind of crap. There's lots of stuff you can go back and impeach people for. And since they've set the precedent now of you don't even have to be still in office, sure, keep
Hell,
bringing articles of impeachment. This will be
I
fun.
would to make it a bipartisan thing. I would bring up articles of impeachment against George W. Bush for the entire surveillance state he brought to bear against American citizens.
Sure.
I mean,
But I mean, that's the problem with taking the steps that the Democrats keep taking. We don't like you, so we're going to impeach you, rather than any actual crime needing to be committed. And the fact that they did it post office also is, I mean, you're just opening doors that the Democrats never seem to think about what would happen down the road. They only think about here and the now. And that's why facts over feelings is the better way to go.
It's easy to do that when you if you're a Democrat, right? So when Democrats are in power, and I forget where I saw it on X, it might have even been shared by Eric Myers, who's in the chat. When Democrats are in power, they will basically run roughshod over any norm to do their agenda, to do anything, whatever. When Republicans are in power, we pussyfoot around it and get caught up in all that. But when they're not worried about it because they have no compunction about changing what needs to be changed for whatever works for them. Like if the norm is the filibuster,
to the Democrats, the Constitution is just a roadblock. It is not a thing that they actually feel or care anything about. It's just something that needs to get out of their way.
Justice Brown, it was one of the worst statements I've ever heard out of a Supreme Court. It was in the Trump
about the First Amendment.
The First Amendment seems to be a real problem
for the government.
It's the First Amendment seems to be a real problem to limit the government, and we should probably try to work around that. I'm paraphrasing, but it's
a complete misunderstanding of how the First Amendment works and how the Constitution limits the government, not the people.
No, but that's the point. It's like you seem to have a firm grasp about what the First Amendment does to the government. Your problem is that you're not understanding that was the goddamn point.
That's the reason. Yeah.
It's not something that we should just move on from. And so that's why the Democrats will shapeshift whatever is necessary at any given time. Now that they're in charge, Schumer loves the filibuster. Right? Oh, yeah. I'm not going to, but he moved, remember, it was just when Sinema and from West Virginia Manchin were the ones who blocked him from negating the filibuster. And yeah, for as much damage as it would have done short term for them, for us, think of what would have happened because once the filibuster gets nuked, it's not like we can't turn around and say we don't
Well,
want to use it.
look at what we told Harry Reid. We said, Harry, you don't want to get rid of the filibuster for judicial nominees. And he said, yes, we do, because we want to get this done right now. And then how many Supreme Court justices do we have now that have been put through specifically because the filibuster was removed by Harry Reid? Same thing would happen if you remove the filibuster altogether. They think it'll help them in the short run. In the long run, it's bad technically for both parties, but if one party's going to use it, then the other party is too. You're going to fight fire with fire at some point. So
Again, and that's I've said
short-term thinking.
That's why I think we're in extraordinary times. We can either it's a lot like Lincoln during the Civil War. You can either maybe destroy a few norms for the immediate term to try to preserve what you think is the idea of America, or or just deal with doing it. So for the Republicans who are in Congress, you can suck it up and do what needs to be done to try to codify these things that are important to preserve the United States as it should operate, or you're just going to end up like, look at Europe, look at what's going on over there. Germany just is on the they're on the brink of outlawing the most popular conservative party because they're winning in the polls. The intelligence community of Germany has declared them an extremist group now.
And you're not allowed to run who your party elected to run. It's just nope, we're not allowing that person on the ballot. They tried it with Trump. They tried to keep him off a ballot. Happened in Colorado. I mean, those are the norms that they just. It was hilarious to me that the Democrat Party and Democrat judges, will literally just be like, no, we get to choose who you're running in the election. Republicans, you don't actually get a say in this. It's like crazy.
It is crazy.
We're coming to the end of it. You got anything else you wanted to cover real quick, or?
No, I think we covered everything for this week that I had on the list. I do know this week, like every week, I'm sure we'll have more court updates and things. But we did walls, the budget exercise, tariff, and elections in Canada, Australia.
Oh, we did want to have a quick laugh about Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh, that's true.
At the 100 Days rally in Michigan, Trump called Whitmer up on the stage, and she was like, I wasn't expecting to speak, but now he has twice embarrassed her and has essentially destroyed her hopes for running for president because she's been shown in the Oval Office with him now where she tried to hide her face. And then he brought her up during what is essentially a rally and made her speak.
Yeah, if Trump is really trying to nuke the possible contenders in the Democrats, look for him to go to Kentucky and give a big bear hug to Andy Bashir. He's like, no, I'm gonna make sure the only person you can run is that gay dude out of Colorado, Polis. And good luck. Yeah, good luck for that.
Yeah,
you better
be hanging out with Shapiro next, and then
he is. By the way, yeah, Polis is like committed hard to try to be running for president in 28.
Well, Polis is no different than a governor for California, so I'm sure plenty of Democrats would like it, but he's been a horrible governor here, especially on Second Amendment stuff. So yeah, Whitmer having to get on stage and give a speech during the rally, hilarious. Trump completely neutered her, and I love it. And she should be the one most happy with Trump at the moment because they might actually be able to bring back some of the car manufacturing to Michigan, but she's dead set against working with him. So,
yeah, she's the whole thing was summed up where she did those folders over her face in the photo op in the Oval Office.
Yeah, trying to hide from the media.
Yeah, nothing like that.
So, What do you got coming up this week?
Well, we've got the Matapap on Tuesday where we'll be hanging out. I think I forget which story we're doing this week, but I think
I
Matt's
don't know
already
that
got a
he.
big one.
I think he picked one. I don't know that
Yeah.
we know what it is yet.
Yeah, and then on Friday on the Ascendant Art podcast, 9 p.m. Eastern, I believe we're gonna probably have another good time. I've got time, so we might have another fun music quiz. We're gonna definitely have Mobland episode 6 breakdown and review. It's just been getting better. Tom from Midnight's Edge joined us last week, and that was
Mm-hmm.
fun to have another person who watches the show bring in their theories and thoughts on it. So that'll be. I think that'll probably be the bulk of our time because we do full breakdowns of the episode, and that's
Yeah, we've been going about an hour on it.
yeah, which is good because I think that show is really great. It's entertaining and it has a lot of thought provoking alternatives like for theories. And us on YouTube, when we're doing entertainment stuff, it's always good to theory craft. I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun talking about things we like.
Oh,
And theory crafting, especially on things we like. Um, as for me, tonight I am going to be guesting on Sammy Threepeat, who I met in Vegas. I've never seen the show, don't know what to expect, but that is tonight at 7 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Central. So come check it out. I might be. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what we're even covering, so it'll be interesting. But you can watch me squirm maybe a little bit. Then just the usual gamut of shows the rest of the week. Comics Division on Monday and Thursday. I don't have to worry about watching the Avs anymore, so I'll not be missing some shows because the Avs blew it. And then, Tuesday we've got on Mad's channel. Wednesday, I think we've got Christian panel this week, and then the midweek hump on Shag's channel. Friday with you guys, Saturday Bourbon and Boarding, because it goes on even though the Avs don't. And then Sunday we're back here. So hope everybody has a great rest of their Sunday. Come catch me later tonight on Sammy Threepeat's channel. That's SAMMY, the number 3, and Pete, PEAT. So should be fun. Everybody have a good one. We'll catch you later.
bye.
Bye.